Meeting of Energy and Utilities Subcommittee is called to order. Members, please take your seats. Turn off your electronic devices. Okay. Ms. McCloskey, when you're ready, please call the roll. Thank you.
Chair Eagle.
Here.
Vice Chair Bashirs.
Here.
Ranking Member Dudley.
Here.
Representative Broder.
Here.
Representative Fullwood.
Here.
Representative Goodson. Representative Goodson.
He's here.
Representative Hill.
Here.
Representative Hudson.
Here.
Representative LaRosa.
Here.
Representative Nunez. Representative Ray Winkle-Vasalinda.
Here.
Representative Rodriguez. Representative Williams.
Here.
Quorum is present.
All right, thank you, members. We have a quorum. We've got those providing testimony, please fill out an appearance card and turn it in to staff here up front. We've got 3 bills on the agenda today, and we are going to start with Representative Ray on House Bill 777. You're recognized when you are ready. Chairman.
Wave closed, was that it? Thank you, Mr. Chairman and committee members.
I see your mic's on, Representative.
Is that it?
Now it's off. I'm sorry.
There we go. There we go. Thank you for taking an opportunity to present this bill. This is about the rate of utility bills, and it's really not focused on how much electric rates are, as much as the goal here is to look at how much government is imposing on the cost of electrical power. The reason being is, as we've looked at a number of different initiatives to attract businesses, and particularly manufacturers, into the state to stabilize the work base that we have, the problem that you will get into is the cost of electricity. The cost of power here in the state tends to be higher than it is in other regions, and it tends to be an area that we've actually put and loaded up a lot of taxes and fees and things of that nature. And so the goal was actually to identify what the impact was of government on this. And the reason being is because a product is about 35% the cost of power when you have a manufactured product. So it was really just a simple thing to get a snapshot at it so that we can understand if there are areas that we can work on to better collect fees and services, fees for the services that we provide, or to look at other ways that we can help to attract manufacturers into the state. That's the bill.
All right. Let's see if we, I guess questions. Questions for the sponsor, members. Representative Ray Winkle-Vasalinda with the question.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, Representative Ray, for bringing this good idea, I think. Does this presuppose that the study that you could also be looking at alternatives to what we have now?
Mr. Chairman?
You recognized.
Thank you. Actually, all I want is just a snapshot right now, and then it will give us a piece of information that we can work with. So ultimately, I believe that you can get some alternatives to where we are, but the goal is really just to get a working tool that we have at our disposal for being able to say whether we want to make a change in a particular area, which is the cost of power. That's all it is.
Follow?
In this study, would you also be looking at not just, is it just rates, or is it also costs? Like some of the things that I've talked about and some others have talked about have been costs that are pushed off on consumers for environmental things and health and those kinds of things. And I was just wondering if you're going to be looking at those kinds of societal costs.
You recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm not concerned with the societal cost. It's just what the impact is. Now, ultimately, a societal cost can be if a particular community wants to look at doing something. Tallahassee is a great example. But, they need to be aware of what those ramifications may be as they start to attract or want to attract certain types of businesses into the regional area.
Representative Fullwood for a question.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. have a question to Representative Ray. As a freshman and learning the processes here, I'm just wondering, can the OPAGA study, do we necessarily need a bill, or can the Speaker of the House or Senate President simply request an OPAGA study versus having legislation? I'm just curious.
You're recognized.
Thank you. Well, actually, it could be done by a speaker. It could be done by a president. However, those requests have certain criteria that they're going to be looking for as well. And so rather than trying to go down that path, the OPAGA study was the option that looked best to me, and also making it independent from the Public Service Commission as well, so that way they're not too close to not too close to what they're seeing, because sometimes you're so close you don't see what's going on. So it gives an independent look at it.
Thank you.
Representative Berman for a question.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So then, what you alluded to the fact that there was it was a snapshot, and that you wanted to use it for going forward. What is the idea that you plan on using it for going forward with?
You're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. An example is in Tampa. Tampa has a rate. There were some people that I was talking to that were trying to attract a manufacturing operation in, and they weren't able to compete because the cost, that the differential that is attributed to what has been imposed by local government was about 12 to 17% higher. And so therefore, they couldn't attract those companies in. And so at the end of the day, it's about giving them an understanding of that so they can develop policies that will help attract those companies in.
All right, seeing no other questions, we do have an appearance card from Susan Glickman, Southern Alliance for Clean Energy.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and members of the committee. I'm Susan Glickman. I'm the Florida Director of Southern Alliance for Clean Energy, and I am extremely sympathetic to Representative Ray's desire to keep energy costs low, and I have a few suggestions of things that ought to be included in the bill, and perhaps we can work together as it moves through the process. Number one, I would suggest that the language also cover out the breakout of fuel costs versus other costs. So you have a breakdown of the fuel costs versus transmission and distribution. That would be one thing we'd want to look at. The other is I suggest that we separately itemize the early cost recovery so that we can look at what that cost is to businesses that want to locate and relocate to Florida. I also suggest that we separate out the FECA cost, the Florida Energy Efficiency and Conservation Act. That should be itemized separately so we can see exactly what's spent on energy efficiency, the cost of energy efficiency versus new power plants. I would also suggest that we review the reserve margins of each utility, and if we could benchmark those reserve margins to other southeastern utilities and then determine the impact of that on costs and rates as well. And then I would suggest that we compare our just general costs of energy to other states. I had just read that the Tennessee Valley Authority has a recent power purchase agreement with NextEra, which is Florida Power and Light's parent company. It's an 80-megawatt solar project to be located in Alabama. And the price, that is said to be priced around 6.1 cents a kilowatt hour, which is substantially substantially less than what we're paying pretty much anywhere in the state. And then lastly, I go to a gym here in Tallahassee, and there's a bulletin board, and it says you can't out-exercise a bad diet. So if we're really going to do something to help the citizens of the state of Florida and businesses, we need to do a public integrated resource plan, and that would be an important goal. OPAGA would be perfect to review utility planning processes and the oversight processes in comparison to other vertically integrated utilities across the country. And then you can really see what kind of a job we're doing or not doing.
Got a question from Rep. Williams.
Thank you. And thank you, Ms. Glickman, for being here. Is your organization stand ready to engage with OPAGA if this bill were to pass and help with some of those fact-finding issues that they may need?
You're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Actually, I would suggest that you might add in the language that there is a involved stakeholder process. That's particularly important in integrated resource planning. When you have an engaged stakeholder process, that's what makes it different when utilities would probably tell you that they internally do integrated resource planning, but if you're not doing it in a transparent way with stakeholders at the table. So, Representative Williams, thank you for asking that, and the answer is absolutely yes.
Thank you, Ms. Glickman.
Thank you.
Members, we're in debate. Anyone wishing to debate the bill? You're recognized to close on your bill, Representative Ray. Oh, I'm sorry. We have debate from Representative Ray Winkle-Vasalinda.
Thank you, Chair. I think this is a good idea to study energy and energy utilization and energy costs and all that sort of thing. But I'd like to see some other things in your bill, and I would like to see externalities included. There's some things that Ms. Glickman mentioned that I'd like to see included. And also, I've been trying to figure out an accounting of jobs and how we utilize and create energy and distribute it, what effect it has on job creation. There's a whole host of things I'd like to see studied, as well as alternatives. Princeton University, from what I understand, is completely off the grid, and I imagine that's pretty cheap for them. So I'd like to see some of those other things. So I'm going to vote against your bill today, although I think it's a great idea to start looking at these things and having OPAGA help us. Thank you.
Seeing no other debate, you're welcome to close on your bill.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And thank you, Representative Ray Winkle-Vasalinda. I always appreciate your insight and your input, and we have long enjoyed a great relationship of sharing different ideas. I'd like to make sure that everybody stays focused on what the intent of this is. And I think it caused a bit more of a firestorm than the intent was with it. The intent of this is very simply to identify what government has added to the bill. And the purpose of adding to the bill is to define areas where that we can go and we can look at. Now, when we get down the road and you get something that comes back, you may want to go back and to look at that. I wasn't trying to get into how much is power cost here because of these different items. It was really just what are the governmental impacts that we have, because those are areas that we can go and we can attack right away. We're investing in in manufacturers, we're investing in ports, we're trying to broaden the economic drivers of the state. The reason that we're doing that is because it's about jobs and about good paying jobs. So as we look at that, we need to look at ways in which we would attract people to come into the state, not necessarily by an incentive, but because the cost of power is about 35% of a manufactured product. So if it's 30% higher because of something that we've done, and I don't know what that cost will be, if it's 30% higher because of what we've done, it will add necessarily 5 to 6% to the bottom line of a product. Therefore, a company that we may like to attract to the state will not come here. And so it's about understanding an area where that we can immediately go and impact and work on. That's what we're trying to accomplish here. I thank everybody for your input, and I ask for your consideration.
Thank you, Representative Ray. And having closed on his bill, Ms. McCloskey, please call the roll.
Representatives Bashirs?
Yes.
Broder?
Yes.
Dudley?
Yes.
Fullwood?
Yes.
Goodson? Hill? Hudson? LaRosa? Nunez? Ray Winkle-Vasalinda? Rodriguez? Williams?
Yes.
Chair Eagle?
Yes.
The bill passes.
All right, members, by your vote, we will show HB 777 reported favorably. Thank you, Representative Ray, for your time today.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and committee members.
All right, up next, we're going to hear House Bill 1173 by Representative Porter. You're recognized to explain your bill when you're ready. And And I believe you have a strike all amendment, is that correct? Do you want to take that up first?
Yes. Thank you, Chairman. This is a rather lengthy explanation. I do apologize. I will try to trim it back as much as possible and still make it coherent. This bill implements many provisions that were recommended by the Water and Wastewater Study Committee that was commissioned a few years ago. In regard to water resellers, they're currently only exempt from PSC regulation if they only pass through the actual cost of water or wastewater services to tenants or individually metered residents. This bill would allow water resellers to charge the actual cost of water and wastewater plus up to 9% of that cost for meter reading and or billing. It authorizes the Commission to approve the creation of a utility reserve fund to help fund infrastructure repairs or replacements and allows the PSC to promulgate rules to outline what projects in which the funds could be utilized. It authorizes the Commission to increase or decrease rates called pass-through costs without a hearing for certain required expenses. It prevents the pancaking of rate case expenses by not allowing a utility to recover rate case expenses for more than one rate case at a given time. It prohibits the recovery of rate case expenses for outside attorneys, consultants, etc. for staff-assisted rate cases, provides a sales tax exemption for sales or leases to water, wastewater, IOU owned by Florida corporations. It clarifies that the PSC may on its own motion or based on complaints of customers review water quality as it pertains to secondary water standards established by DEP. It expands the availability of low-interest loans through the state revolving fund to all investor-owned water and wastewater utilities, and directs the Division of Bond Finance to review the allocation of private activity bonds in Florida with respect to water and wastewater projects. That is the strike all, Mr. Chair.
Okay, are there any questions for Rep. Porter on the strike all amendment? Seeing no questions, we do have an appearance card from Chris Hansen, Florida Rural Water Association. Do you want to speak on the strike all or on the bill as amended? Waves in support. Thank you. Okay, seeing no other appearance cards, members, is there debate on the strike all amendment? Seeing no debate, you are welcome to close on your strike all amendment. Waves close. Is there any objection to the strike all amendment? Seeing no objections, show the strike all amendment adopted. We're now back on the bill as amended. Are there any questions on the bill? Representative Dudley with a question.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Representative Porter, I'm just curious about the provision to excluding for-profit, privately owned or investor-owned water systems from participating in the Drinking Water Revolving Loan Trust Fund. It strikes that and inserts language permitting participation. Could you elaborate on what that does and why you want to do that?
You recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I think I would defer to Catherine Pennington at this time. She's the real expert on this, and she is from the PSC and I believe was involved in the original study.
Do you wish to speak? Just to fill out an appearance card when you're done. Thank you.
Sorry to make you fill out an appearance card.
Could you repeat the question, please?
You recognize.
There's a provision to strike the exclusion for for-profit, privately owned or investor-owned water systems from participating in the Drinking Water Revolving Loan Trust Fund program, and inserts language permitting participation of such entities in the program.
You recognized.
Thank you. Representative Dudley, the Water and Wastewater Study Committee actually, this is one of their recommendations, and felt that there are times when locally owned municipal or cooperative utilities or other utilities had a benefit because they were eligible for that fund, whereas investor-owned utilities that are for-profit did not have the advantage of those low-interest loans, and that putting them on a more even keel and allowing them to participate in that program to get those lower interest loans would ultimately result in lower rates to ratepayers.
Follow-up?
Do you have any statistics in terms of historically this ever being done or being done in any other jurisdictions where it does in fact result in lower rates.
You're recognized.
Thank you. I don't have the committee's report right in front of me. I do seem to recall that discussion, and I think that there might be some information in the final report, but we'd get that to you.
Rep. Williams with a question?
Thank you so much. Yeah. And so I guess the question I have for you is, from the PSC's